Hello, hello. It's been a long time since I made a video. I've kind of keeping it quiet while I've been trying to figure out a deck to win a PQ with. I didn't want to play something meta, so kind of operating the down low. I also wasn't playing the game for almost 3 or 4 months, I think, towards the end of set 2, the Clifton Park PQ, into up until a week before Maryland PQ, which was 4 weekends ago. I didn't touch the game. I needed a break from it, especially with Boba Ban when I was playing Boba Blue. Um, yeah, so I'm back now for a video, maybe more in the future. I am here to talk to you about Cad Green today. I'm gonna disable my camera so that I make sure I don't block anything. I'm also realizing my messy room's in the background. Got some cabinet, yeah, whatever. You guys don't care. Anyways, disable this camera. So, from most recent to least recent, we have my RSG PQ list, which I got first at. Got my day one buy finally. Took me 7 PQs, 7 PQs, many top eights, and finally got first. This is the same exact list as the one that I used a week ago at Flipside, where I got fifth, and slightly different than the one. Even though these two change the card order, these are the same exact lists. So if you pause it, look, they'll be the same exact one. 3 weeks ago, I did Hex. This is supposed to say 21st. I went 5 and 2 at Hex. This list was slightly different. I'm not going to go into it too much now. In an effort to keep the video shorter. I went a total in 20 and 5 in terms of match count over the 3 PQs. And I'm not going to go too, as I was just saying, I'm not going to go too in depth in this video with the new set coming out soon. I kind of want to see where the meta lines before I put in a high amount of work producing YouTube videos on a deck that maybe in the next meta isn't even that good. But if there's a lot of interest, definitely let me know. Like, comment, show me that there's engagement, and I can definitely put out more content, even if maybe this deck isn't good next set. But right now, I think it. I personally think that on a large scale doesn't support it because I'm the only one that's performed with it. But internally, which we'll go into slightly, I personally think this is hands down the best deck to be playing right now, and it's not even close. So, also, if anyone's interested, I will be starting coaching soon. Details aren't available yet, but you can reach me at email I just set up for it, or through the McClunky Discord, both of which will be in the description to this video. So why Cad Green? I am a control player at heart. I was primarily a tempo or aggro style control where it's can go under, but then it has the ability to go late or go for an alternate win condition, and such as milling out or just fatiguing in other games like Magic, Hearthstone, etc. I think this deck actually does a very reasonable job matching that style, although it's a mid-range deck by definition. It does seem, the more I play it though, that it actually just can go control into everything, including Bosk Blue, including Kira. The tools it has have been way more impressive than I first thought, which we will go into slightly as we go on. I do prefer the yellow-blue combination, and that's what I'd been playing in set 1 with Boba. However, there's no good leader for that right now, and it doesn't deal with meta decks very well, especially the faster meta decks where Bosk Blue actually does, but then Bosk Blue has its own issues. I'm not going to get into that. DJ also just absolutely wrecks yellow-blue combination, where at least Bosk has some play into it. So I wanted to target Sabine and Han, and one of the best ways to do that is with ambushers. So, as we can see, there's a bunch of ambushers all the way up the curve: Cloud Rider, Forlom, Bosk, Syndicate, Enfys, Maul. For a time, there was even Vader, but that came out for reasons. I mean, there's just not enough units to pull from it in this version. It's also not Underworld. By themselves, they're not strong enough, but with... Oh, what happened? But with Cad, with the ping from Cad, they do certainly become strong enough. A couple examples are the good trades turn 1 plays have, being able to kill a unit and stick around or trade up, such as the Cartel Spacer pinging an A-Wing from Sabine or Anakin or any red heroic deck and then being able to tack into it or force them to trade. Which, if they're trading and we're the quote-unquote control deck, then we're happy with that. Crafty can ping something and hack into it with the shield and still leave behind a body. The Cartel Spacer would still leave behind a body. Could be like Battlefield Marine, Bodhi. There's a bunch of 3 health units on turn 1, even 2 health units, which then you could even kill them with the double ping. Cloud Rider can trade up in a lot of scenarios, or just trade cleanly with turn 1 plays. If there's an opposing Crafty Smuggler L337, just pings off the shield with the CAD trigger, and then trades with it cleanly. These tend to be more of a 1.5 to 1 in terms of card value from the turn 1 plays. Bazine also can get some value in this sense, but that's more from hand selection. So I say those are like more equivalent to 1.5 to 1 cards, but already we're getting very, very good value with our turn 1 plays with Cad as our leader. This becomes... There's a lot more emphasis on this as we move up into the bigger ambushers, Forlom, Syndicate, Bosk, and Enfys, then to an extent Maul, because Maul can come down as early as turn 3. These have the ability to trade up at worst. At best, they're going 3 for 1 or better, frequently going 2 for 1, 3 for 1, but they can even go higher than that with the CAD pings. Forlom kills Sabine outright if it's an open board, which isn't that hard to set up, actually, with the yellow curve of this deck, which is what we want to be seeing against Sabine. Having Now There Are Two bringing out a big body ambusher on turn 2 and cleaning up their turn 1 play, or getting another ping off if they're in space. Cartel Spacer would have been able to clean space as well. McClunky is able to just clean board if they go A-Wing Wing Leader, and we have Cartel Spacer McClunky. We're cleaning up their space units. Even if we're in the ground and we're playing McClunky, we're still reasonably able to stem Wing Leader, although that's the worst case scenario. But it's still pretty reasonable, especially if we have something like Now There Are Two, instead of McClunky, like Now There Are Two Bosk into McClunky or something of that nature. There's a bunch of lines that work very, very well into Sabine when we're seeing just the yellow cards. So Forlom trades up in that sense. If we're going against Bosk, Forlom can also trade up into Han with if Cad's flipped. So like if we've ramped first, and as long as we've ramped against Han, we're flipping Cad when they're putting in a resource, and then if we've controlled the board, which we most likely have, then they flip and all of our ambushers just kill Cad, Enfys, and Bosk leave a body behind. Not kill Cad, kill Han, and Enfys and Bosk leave a body behind. I've won multiple games where Han Yellow has stolen 2, even 3 resources just because the value that this deck gets, even without like Cad flip on curve, like a delayed Cad flip because they're taking resources. The value this deck gets from the pings and from the ambushers is just so high. And from Now There Are Two, because we only need 5 resources in a unit. So Now There Are Two Cad and just capture board or ping stuff for Now There Are Two Maul. Insane amount of value. The top end of Maul and Cad can come out as early as turn 3, as I said, with Now There Are Two, as long as there's a turn 1 Underworld into a ramp, then turn 3, so like turn 1 Crafty is probably the best since it's shielded, but Cartel also works, Bazine can work. Even a Cloud Rider can work in some very rare scenarios. Into a resupply on turn 2 is best, but even a super laser attack does require another action to attack with it, but then you get a little more board presence. But resupply on turn 2, let's say, and then turn 3, slam Now There Are Two, slam Cad, slam Maul. Cad on turn 3 is... I mean, they're both extremely oppressive, but Cad just like capturing their early plays, they don't even want to rescue them because it's just going to give card draw. Like, he's hitting for 7, potentially 9 with a Hotshot Blaster, and then you don't want to take back a Battlefield Marine or an A-Wing and give the Cad Green player 2 cards on turn 4 of the game, it's very oppressive. There's also the Clunk and Bazine angle, where we're getting resets on Bazine. The Clunk angle specifically, where we're getting resets on Bazine, we're getting resets on ambush units. With Bosk, it can deal 6 or 7 damage depending on if Cad is deployed or on leader side. Clunky does 3. Cad is doing 1 or 2 depending on if he's deployed or not, and the boss trigger is dealing 2, and we can really control how that gets distributed. Even just with Cad deployed, McClunky becomes a 1 resource, deal 3, and they choose to take 2. And we're returning a unit that we normally we're not even upset about the quote unquote downside of returning a unit, because if it's Bazine, we're happy about that, but in many cases, we get to reset some health on an ambusher. It feels pretty good. Again, we're playing this like a control deck, so losing a body on the board just to regain some health on that unit and get a lot of card advantage, it feels very good. The package of Underworld plus Cad provides a lot to deal with Han and Sabine, which were the 2 decks that I wanted to target building this deck, and it seems to do so very well. I do want to give a notable mention to Reinforcement Walker. This was a card that was in the original list and came out pretty quickly and went to the side in the Hex & Co list. It was in the sideboard, and then immediately for flip side, went back into the main in place of the 7th Fleet, which I just found wasn't really needed for the Django matchup because we were winning it a reasonable amount of time anyways, and then the Reinforcement Walker actually does help a significant amount everywhere else aside from the Django matchup. The healing, even though it's 8 resources, because we're a control deck, we're not always killing the Sabine as quickly as we'd like to, or we've established a board presence and now we need a little more time to kill them. Getting that 3 health heal or that 6 health heal is all we need to get out of reach of their 4 causes, or their timely wreckers, or their ECL wreckers. So the Reinforcement Walker I did find pretty critical for the Sabine matchup and other aggressive matchups that are not Django. Django just has way too much. Those games are so volatile and explosive. We'll go into them in a second. And then the card draw it's getting against everything grindy is just incredible. Even Han, it's dual role. If it's a grindy matchup against Han Yellow, it's giving us card draw. If they're really trying to aggro us down and play tempo, it's giving us healing. It's providing a 6/9 body, which is very hard for them to deal with. It also gives us reach for a lot of decks, and 6/9 bodies tend to be hard to deal with. My team also did find in testing that we happened to beat Django a reasonable amount. It was upwards of 70% over a 20-game sample, like 60 to 70. We're going to look at those stats in a little bit. The main way this is done is by cheating out an early Cad or Maul with Now There Are 2. Not even necessarily early, it could be even as late as a Cad flip turn, like off of ramp. So turn 4, turn 5, turn 4 if we've ramped, we're flipping Cad, and then just Now There Are 2. It only saves 1 resources, but that's all that matters. Play Now There Are 2, capture their whatever they've played in space up until that point, get a 7 body on the field, get a 4 attack with Cad, and then untap first action. We got initiative, which is the goal in this scenario, because hopefully they're playing another unit or going with an attack, because they're playing a lot of units. It's actually very hard for them to get initiative as Django, especially with their current builds with on the doorstep, just kind of swarmy, a lot of 1-drops in the ground, although those aren't very good against us. It's not that hard to get initiative. Throw a Hotshot Blaster on Cad after we've captured a bunch of units. Hit for 9. With the leader attack that's already 13. Hit again for 9 if we have an early claim. That's 22. We've only needed to deal 3 more points of damage. These games tend to be end really quickly, and they do revolve heavily around Hotshot Blaster. When I bring up stat pages, you will see like Hotshot Blaster is by far the most played in that matchup and most important card. We did also find that this just crushes Cad Tarkentown and Quinlan Tarkentown. They're pretty much just free. We're just doing what they're doing, but better, bigger, faster. 5 extra health on the base. Extremely easy. They're very free. What else is there? There's the big mid-range decks. Anakin to an extent, although it tends to be a little faster, a bit more small mid-range at this point. Kira, both variants of Bosk, Han Green, Quinlan Green, Palps, etc. These are the harder matchups and ones that we tested the least, as they tend to fold to the faster decks in the meta. The meta is extremely fast right now, and these decks aren't well equipped to deal with it, so they don't need to be worried about as much. That being said, I have played them a decent amount now in PQ matches and through additional testing with the team, which I didn't track. It's not in the stat tracker, which you'll see in at the end of this. And what I found in those is in the original testing, the small sample was close to 50%, and now over a large sample, it actually feels like these matches are maybe even upwards of 60%, which is kind of crazy. Like when we're talking about a deck being 70% or higher, like 80% into the most played decks, like that the fast decks, with Django being the one that's a little closer to like 60, and then still maintaining like a 60 against the decks that should be beating it. Kira is probably the only one that I think would be reasonably hard, but it's having played that one very few games, and in the few I have at this point, seeing a lot of the value that we could get from cards like Choose Sides, from cards like Relentless, from cards like Devastator, Cad Bane being a soft answer to Avenger. It's actually not as bad as I thought. Against these decks, Relentless turns off removal against Blue Villainy, turns off U-Wing against Green Heroic. It's also going one stat line bigger than Home 1. Devastator's just shutting down space if they don't have a way to deal with it. If it's Relentless into Devastator, they can't deal with it. Just the sideboard, the 8-card package in the sideboard. The Choose Side's extremely good against Crate. Devastator can be an okay answer against Crate as long as we can survive the 10 damage. Similar to Choose Sides, as long as we can survive the 7 damage, or they can't put 7 damage on their own Crate, and then kill it with another unit they have, which we tend to have board control. This is a control-style deck, or should be played as such. Normally we can get away against Crate Dragons with, having enough life to sack a Devastator hit, to sack a 7 damage to Choose Sides, and then Choose Sides is just back-breaking for the Crates, so it does have play into matches that should actually be hard for it, at least based on the way these decks are currently designed. This is attacking a meta that is not prepared for this deck. This is definitely a deck that can be prepared for, but as long as this is a small portion of the meta and people aren't willing to commit slots to dealing with it, this seems like an extremely consistent and good way to attack the meta. That's all I'm going to be covering for this video. Oh, wait, sorry. Nope. One more thing. I wanted to briefly go over the stat pages. This is just internal team testing only, so this is not my Carabas stats. My Carabas stats actually very similar to this over a large sample size. I think it's closer to 80% over 60 or 70 games. This also isn't all-inclusive since rematch was not being tracked and we didn't know that at first. The win rate's actually higher than these indicate. So this one has a lot of the Han Solo matches, as you can see in the green, 13 matches played into green at a 61% into teammates. So these are top 8 level players, PQ winning players that it's doing very well into. Han Yellow is 83.3%, and again, the Han Yellow is one of the ones that we didn't get fully into. Han Yellow is actually closer to 90% over the sample. I think the sample was close to 15 to 20 games, and I think only one or two games were dropped. Very, very consistent to that deck. There are some issues with it, but like I said, even if they're stealing resources, we're still just winning with it all the time. We're winning against it all the time. Sabine, 10 games in this sample, 80% against, good Sabine players on the team. Just very good deck. The other ones are smaller. Django, this has 4 of the Django games. 4-0 in this Django sample. This one is the Django sample. Have one Bosk here by mistake. This is a little misleading. This is all against Dark. We did talk about them as we were going. 2 of them I did misplay. I actually had lethal on 2 of this. So if this was altered for that, where I didn't miss the lethal, it would be 12 to 7, not 10 to 9. And this is also where you can see, I think, Hotshot Blaster, by far the most played card. Also the most impactful card. This was some testing against Boss Green internally. Closer to 50%, smaller sample size, but this was also before the sideboard was finalized. As you can see, none of the sideboard cards are in here, and we're already above 50%. Adding those sideboard cards, we're sitting pretty. And then this was against Austin, PQ winner. Just one matchup, pawn green, 1-2-1. Overall, this deck is just, it seems to be winning against everything. Seems to be a very good choice against the current meta and the current deck compositions. So that's all I'm going to cover today. There's obviously a lot more to talk about, like what I consider the core of the deck, the many other cards my team has tried, and when and where we'd use them, such as the notable exception of Waylay, in-depth matchup breakdowns, and going into lines, stuff like that, and more. But with the new set coming out soon, I'm going to see what happens before committing to anything, making any more content and putting in way more work, way more production time. This is just a quick one-take video, get something out there, see how much interest there is, and if there is a lot of interest, make sure to show it. Best way you can do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also reach out to me through the team Discord, which again, links down below. And again, I'm going to start getting into coaching soon. No details on it yet, but within the next few weeks, I'll be making details public, and there will be an email you can reach me at for coaching sessions in the description. You can also reach me through the McClunky Discord. Hope you enjoyed. Try this deck out. It's phenomenal. Play it like a control deck. Know when to go aggro with it. No, don't just like tunnel on control, but like, lean toward playing like a control deck. I think that's a way that people mess up. They don't play this like a control deck, or they don't know when to actually, when to play control and when to switch to racing, or when to risk. You're going against Django. Do they have the No Good to Me Dead? Do they have the Waylay? You just got to chance it sometimes. You got a 9 attack unit, just fully untapped, just claim and hit them, kill them, or know when not to if you can actually interact enough. I think that's the biggest. It's not an easy deck to play. I think this is be more concise about it. To be more concise about it, I could have just said this is not. This is a deck that will reward putting in a lot of practice and will reward gaining a lot of matchup understanding. So, yep. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.